And you were translated in further languages, in other languages except German?
The book were actually translated into Polish, Russian, into Italian and French.
Kult.
Yes. A few little languages it was translated novel intent, like mostly German, I think, and Russian. And so actually I'm not so prominent as Andrei Kurkov. Yes, but I feel it's kind of process of growth, but very strange because these books were written actually 7, 10 or even 15 years ago, especially this celebration of the Risen.
You are influenced by music, you can say, not?
I would say when I was a teenager, I was influenced by music very much, and it was really a kind of some ecstatic experience for me. I remember when my uncle he gave me a music of Pink Floyd or The Doors,
which is not your age.
Absolutely, but you know, in Ukraine we have this time lap. We come to psychedelic revolution and rock and roll revolution after 40 years when it was in Europe. So it's normal.
But Austria is also a bit back, but I think it goes on.
Yes. So my uncle, who was from these 60s of Ukrainian, of Soviet times, he described how Soviet people, how they reacted on the first albums of Beatles or Pink Floyd, for example, and when they heard this music, they couldn't eat for several days because they were so much amused. It was so much different, absolutely different cosmos. Yes, and it was very like me, like my reaction when I heard this music, and it fulfilled me with emotions. And I transformed them into these texts, into Kult and Celebration of the Lizard. But you cannot live for 15 years on music only. And some other interests came to my life, and of course it's much more variety now. But what is the problem of people of my age, and what is my problem, my own problem, is that we felt out of this Soviet system of education, which in some way was depressive and repressive, yes, but in other meaning it gave you some solid background, yes, and if you finished university, for example, you have read some gentleman stuff, yes, beginning from Tolstoy and finishing Balzac, for example, yes, so very, very wide row of reading, and my generation doesn't have this stimulus to read so much. So you mentioned networks or web, yes, and we find very much substitutions in the internet. And
do you use this for writing? Do you use internet for writing?
What do you mean?
I mean that you Google, that you take some parts, that you look.
Yes, of course.
Yes?
It's necessary, but why to read? Yes, it gives you some depth of understanding. It gives you some connection with the history. And if you live in the network has no center and no periphery, and you gain this type of consciousness without a center and without periphery, and you don't see this historical perspective. And it was, I understood this as a problem, and this autumn, like the previous autumn, I started a big marathon of reading. I took a list of 100 books, 100 best books of all times and people. There are many such kind of lists.
From the world literature?
Yes, from the world literature.
Like choice.
Yes, and I began to read point by point and writing some essays on this, and I began to open my mind to some absolutely new dimensions, and probably began to understand something which I couldn't understand. What were my critics writing to me, what they tried to inform me about.